I reached out to my LinkedIn network and did some digging on what people would love to see in Corona and V-Ray. While doing this, I also came up with my ideas for how the software could be even better. Today, I share with you 15 things I wish Corona and V-Ray had. When we're working on a project, we usually have more than one camera in the scene. But sometimes, even small changes can make it impossible to do everything in one file. So we have to create a new file for each camera. It's a bit of the pain because we have to do the same things over and over again, like modifying some materials, adjusting position of objects, changing assets or lighting. It would be super helpful if we could keep everything in one file and adjust various things based on the camera, starting with simple things like resolution, options similar to in batch rendering, which some scripts already do, and ending up with more complicated things like choosing which objects we can see in the viewport. Perhaps it could be done by include-exclude layers, or changing lighting depending on the camera view. Custom shapes in frame buffer will be very helpful. I mean, it's not a huge thing, but it could speed up rendering in some cases. Like, you know how in Photoshop there is a lasso tool? It would be great if we had something like that for rendering non-rectangular shapes. Maybe even just a basic oval shape would be handy. What do you think? I was thinking that it would be super cool if we could have some extra tools for masking. Maybe something like the brush or gradient options in Lightroom. Options that would give us more freedom when creating masks. I find Cryptomate a bit limiting, which doesn't allow for more advanced masking in V-Ray. I wish there were more options available to finish my workflow in the render engines without having to use Photoshop all the time. I would be more than happy to see if Corona and V-Ray had a color mixer feature like the one in Lightroom. It would be so handy to adjust the colors in my scenes, especially for things like trees where I want to tweak the green tones. Right now, it's kind of a pain to do it one by one, so having this feature would be awesome. Another idea I had was to have a procedural map that creates various surface imperfections like smudges, scratches, fingerprints, and drops. It would be amazing to be able to easily adjust them to the objects instead of looking for a specific map and adjusting UVW mapping. Sometimes it's very hard to get exactly what we need, and there are lots of workarounds involved. With such an option, the problem could be solved. There are some cool features in Lightroom that affect the contrast in photographs, options like texture, clarity, and dehaze. I would love to see these options in the render engines too. For instance, just by reducing clarity in the visualization would achieve a more moody vibe. Or we can easily control the fog with the dehaze option. It will simply help us achieve better results faster. I was wondering if it would be possible to create a quicker way of adding lights to LightMix in the software. Right now, it takes a pretty long process to add lights manually by going into render setup and adding render elements. It would be great if there will be a quicker method, maybe from the frame buffer or quads. I don't use camera clipping very often, but sometimes, when I try to use this option, I find it difficult to get the values right so that it only cuts out what I want, instead of, for example, cutting stuff like the corner of some object I have in the scene. It would be awesome if there was an option to include or exclude certain objects in the clipping. It would not be a huge improvement, but sometimes it could be super helpful. Wouldn't it be cool if there was an option that can do the same thing as Polarizer lens filter? You know, like when you're taking photos and there is lots of reflections and glares from a non-metallic surface, such as water, glass, asphalt, or other shiny surfaces. Similarly in 3D, sometimes we have scenes like that, and what we do, we change the material settings to adjust the objects in the scene, which is not quite right. But if there was an option that could mimic the Polarizer filter, it would be so much easier. We could get more accurate images without all the hassle. What if we could have a tool to create weather effects like snow or rain? Something like D5 for instance has, but on the more advanced level. It could work for instance like V-Ray or Corona, where we can adjust various settings to achieve the desired effect. This would make visualizations more interesting, and instead of generating it with complicated plugins or adding later in Photoshop, everything will be done in one software. How awesome would that be? Imagine if we could control the fog in the frame buffer after the render is done. It would be amazing to have the option to control parameters like the distance, density and height of the fog to make some tweaks to the final visualization. Sometimes everything looks great in the preview, but in the final visualization we need some adjustments. We can either go back, adjust the settings and render again, or use Z-Depth pass in post-production to adjust it. With the option, we could do all the adjustments in the frame buffer and don't worry about the settings at the previous stage as much. I think it would be great if we could have composition rules guidelines that would show up only in the camera viewport instead of the frame buffer. The guidelines would be internal to the render engine and would only work in the camera view, but not in the active view. This would be similar to Image Comp Helper, but already built into the software. I find the current guidelines in V-Ray frame buffer a bit difficult to work with. With everything built into the plugin, we wouldn't have to worry about scripts not working every time we update the software. Since AXYZ is a part of Chaos at the moment, it would be really cool if we could add crowds straight in the project file. Instead of going forward and backward, we could create crowds of people inside the project file with all the options we have in Anima. This would speed up the workflow a lot. Obviously, there will be no issues with lagging and slow files. Anyway, I think it's a nice idea. I thought it would be super cool to have an option to set the size for interactive rendering. This way, we could, for instance, easily preview the specific areas of the image in the final visualization resolution. At the moment, we have two options: either try to adjust the size of the frame buffer to an accurate enough size, or render the entire region in the final resolution, which is not the fastest solution. I wish the converters between V-Ray and Corona could work way better. They still need some tweaking, as certain things like lights, fur and some materials don't convert at all. Similar story to the post-production panels, for instance. I use this feature a lot, and it would be great if the results will be more precise and the process smoother. It would be awesome if I could just swap between the two without any worries. As they are already very similar, I feel like I'm wasting a lot of time. In this video, I didn't include the features that V-Ray has and Corona doesn't, or vice versa, or like the tools that work better in one render engine and I wish were available in another, as I think it's just a matter of time for most of this. Also, I saw that many people requested GPU rendering in Corona, but I don't believe it aligns with the plugin's core idea, so I haven't included it either. Let me know in the comments what feature would you like to see in the next updates of Corona or V-Ray. If there will be lots of new ideas, maybe I do part 2 of this video. If you're interested in creating visualizations in these render engines, check out our courses. You can also stay here on YouTube and watch more videos about these render engines. Bye bye!